Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and this is very important because today we have our debate. Our debate topic is this house believe that technology can solve all problems. We have our honorable Prime Minister of this Parliament from the government side, Honorable Prime Minister Professor Rob, uh, Minister of this Parliament for Science and Technology, Mr. Marshall, as well as member of the government, Mr. Adam. On the other hand, we have our oppositions side, opposition leaders, Professor David Smith, and deputy leaders, Professor Donalds. First, I want to give floor Professor Rob.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. This House believes that technology can fix all human problems. Using the U.S. Moon program as an example, here was a situation where the technology at the time was inadequate to do interstellar travel. Yet the then president of the United States, John F. Kennedy, got up in front of a large audience and created the concept of a moonshot. And the elements of the moonshot, I think we'll use as the founding elements of solving any problem. Now, the statement is the House believes that technology can fix all human problems, but it probably could be applied to all problems, as Sharif has pointed out. The U.S. moonshot had a number of elements that went into it. One, the government remained focused on the effort after John F. Kennedy passed. Second, the government maintained a will to accomplish the goal. Retained a high priority. Granted, that was in what appeared to be a competition with Russia, but whatever the goal is, they maintained the will to accomplish the task over the time that was required. They acquired the talent to make it happen. They built up a credible space program, one that at the time led the world and eventually was able to go to the moon. And of course, they couldn't do it without financial resources. They needed money. The money had to fund the overall effort. And again, that money had to be largely raised by the government. Granted, if they'd waited some time, both the amount of money that was required and the amount of will that was required would have been reduced, as we've seen with efforts like SpaceX. Number five, they needed to have the time. They needed to be able to commit the time, put in enough time to accomplish the goal. And finally, the thing that most people forget in doing moonshots, and since the moon program, the entire category of efforts are called moonshots, it was headwinds. They didn't have a lot of headwinds. The nation was behind the effort. There were no conflicting organizations willing to fight it. In many cases, the kinds of problems that we're dealing with will have significant headwinds, and we can't forget that. For instance, if you're focused on a global warming, which is as much a human problem as any, it's considered one of the list of existential threats to the race. The headwinds that face the efforts to reduce or reverse global warming have to do largely with the petrochemical industry, which has fought tooth and nail to keep any advancements from happening because they want to protect their economics. To overcome that kind of a problem, we have as a government three choices. We can make the industry financially whole, fund them so they make the conversion, and so the industry first moves off of oil into a more sustainable power. We can nationalize the industry. Countries have done that in the past for other reasons, and that way they stop being a problem and they are forced to comply. Or we can outlaw them. We can bar the technology from the countries. The two last things would have significant issues given how much the petrochemical industry funds government. So it's unlikely we could do the latter two, but they are options that remain open to us. The viable option is probably to make them financially whole, something that has not, to my knowledge, been tried domestically. If we look at a country like Finland, for instance, who has been very successful in making the move to sustainable energy, to a large extent, it was because they lacked the headwinds that other countries had, and they maintained focus, will, had the talent, funded it, and of course had the time, but they lacked headwinds, and they were able to accomplish it. We need to be able to cover all those bases in order for technology fix the human problems. And if we look at how technology is advancing, there are a number of shortcuts we can take to fix human problems. Medical problems could be fixed by transitioning humans from a biological base to a mechanical base. We can and are approaching through a number of companies the ability to transcend our human life and perhaps move our consciousness into the cloud or into technology, which would solve our existing medical problems en masse, but would certainly create other problems with regard to religion and what we define as human. Having us all live in a matrix is something that could be doable in the second half of the century, but probably nothing something that's not going to be palatable until well beyond that. So we do have to think about culture and the way to transition the population to the problem or to the solution that we advise. But in any case, there isn't a problem out there that if we have the focus, the will, the talent, the money, the time, and we can mitigate the headwinds and get the people that were financially motivated to stop the action out of the way, we couldn't accomplish.
Thank you, Professor Rob, for your excellent speech. As this is the Parliament's and many media also broadcasting our today's debate. From today, actually, one of the largest media. It's from UK, but they have a huge audience from South Asia. So their name is South Asia. They're broadcasting our debate and all of the program from today. And beside that, many other media, they're already joining and collaborating with World Talent Economy Forum. So hopefully, your contribution for these nations and for this national parliament will be very helpful for the developing world. Now I want to give chance, and definitely I want to give thanks. He's also world famous speakers and world famous debater, the editor of this South Asia Web TV, Mr. Maskawat Hassan. So thank you for your support for World Talent Economy Forum. Now I request Professor David Smith as the opposition leader of the parliament.
Thank you so much, and dear Majority Leader, thank you for your introduction. We all know technology has made tremendous difference in our lives and the lives of our citizens. You know, it goes back to the ancient days when technology advanced up, when we used sticks to farm with, and then we went to stone, and we went to metal and horses and everything. That was technology advancements. And it was for the good and the bad because it's contributed to some of the challenges we have today. You know, I kind of go back, and particularly since we have the media from UK online too, to Charles Dickens's books. And if you look at what he wrote in A Tale of Two Cities, and it was the best of time and the worst of time. And this was an observation he was making about the technology advancements during the French Revolution. And, you know, it was a time of massive technology updates, mass society disruption, as well as others in there. And it was, as he says, it was the best of time and the worst of time. And that's what we see really with technology today. There's places technology undoubtedly can help, but there's places where technology is impacting each of our citizens in very, very different ways, from being put out of work to being changing lifestyles, where if you look at the impact on the citizens, where we're gaining more weight, we're eating worse, we're doing all these things because technology has become such a enabler. It affects us as individuals. You know, I'm also taken back though to a tune from my youth, and it kind of, I think, fits today when we look at this issue before the Parliament. You know, Bob Dylan wrote a very powerful lyrics about change and the technology and those things are, and it was from his song, "The Times Are Changing." You know, it was, "Come gather around people wherever you roam, admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone. The times they are changing. And that's what we see today. We see places where technology is coming in and helping us change. And technology has, as we all admit, very good benefits, but there's places where it just doesn't work. It's places where technology is actually helping our society fall apart. We've seen around the world misinformation that is aided by technology. We've seen the global impact of fake news really driven by technology, destroy part of the society of our life and how we're doing things. And we've seen, again, technology for good, but technology for bad as well. And, as we begin to see it, we see it in so many different places and what it's doing and how we're having to react to it. A great example is in gaming. I love the gaming approaches, but then you see kids who and adults who are addicted to it. One of the interesting one is there's a game called Grand Theft Auto that was developed, and it consisted of kids and people stealing cars, shooting, and hurting random people to be more offensive. Well, they actually took that and it's driven out. There's multiple examples in the media of technology influencing people to act out that. There's a great quote out of one of the kids who killed someone and was convicted, and he said, really, that technology is life. Technology is an irresistible, mysterious force, and it has the ability to change every aspect of life it encountered. Well, it changed his life and that of the people he murdered because technology sometimes is a little bit too far, too much over the top. And so there's many places in there, but technology is not an absolute. Technology has to be understood in its moderation. Technology is a tool that can be used for good, and it's a tool that can be used for bad. So that is our initial position in this debate.
Thank you, Honorable Opposition Leader of this Parliament. Now I request our Honorable Science and Technology Ministers, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you, honorable members of our parliament. And I acknowledge our Prime Minister's approach and totally support it 100%. The opposition has confused two issues, technology with human behavior. And as a background in clinical psychology, I must say that attributing technology that it's no good and that it has problems is not the issue. I think the issue is human behavior. Since the beginning or the advent of technological innovation, with the beginning of the advent of the wheel back in ancient times, the wheel has been used for chariots for war. The wheel has been used to create transportation to carry millions of people, hundreds of millions of people around the planet. So to attribute the technology as being good or bad is a human trait, not a technology issue. Technology in itself is only as good as it's put to use. We do believe, as our Prime Minister stated, that technology can solve all the problems of the world. We know this. And it's human behavior that causes the issues. To give you an example, the climate crisis that came out of COP26, that the latest in November of 2021, people were disappointed in that because the politicians are confusing between behavior and the technological advances that have been used by humans to create a climate crisis. By the same token, we do know that we have technologies today, and I'm going to be going to a meeting that I have to leave and I have to excuse myself from this debate. But I'm going to a meeting to discuss the very technologies that can actually solve the climate crisis, such as the advent of pyrolysis, which is the burning in the absence of oxygen to create a material known as biochar, which has at least 500,000 uses. And depending on how the humans apply it, it'll be good or bad for humans. But what we do know is that it has tremendous propensity for good if it's used to solve water issues, improve soil health, and improve air quality and reduce GHG emissions. The very issue that humans have used created greenhouse gas emissions through technology to draw down to create pollution. We know we can solve this. The point is, technology can be used to solve the problems of humanity. And that's the premise of today's debate, not whether technology is good or bad. Technology is good or bad depending on how humans use it. It's human behavior that can be good or bad. Human behavior that causes wars or peace. Human behavior that can cause pandemics to spread by not getting vaccinated or by not wearing masks when appropriate. So I think the honorable opposition has good intentions, but I think they're confusing human behavior with technology. As our honorable Prime Minister Rob has pointed out, and I'm sure my fellow ministers on our bench will point out, is that the promotion of technology is the intent of the human. But we do know technology can solve the problems. If it couldn't, then we'd all have to give up and throw our hands up in the air and just say, oh, there's nothing we can do. We're done. So what we do know is that we have technology such as pyrolysis that can solve air, soil, health, and prevent zoonotic diseases, such as mad cow disease that led to Jacob Creutzfeldt disease, that wiped out all the cattle and pigs in the UK, in Ireland, and northern France not that long ago. So we know that there is an opportunity for new technology to come to the table and be used for good and solve problems. To say that they can't solve the problems is giving up and throwing our hands up in the air. So on that note, I thank my fellow ministers, and I thank the moderator of the debate, Professor Sharif, for having us on this debate. A very important debate, mind you. I will be leaving in about 20 minutes to go to my meeting about pyrolysis and technology development that will help our country advance and go to the next level and bring sustainable technologies that can solve human problems. And I leave it at that, and I'll leave my fellow ministers to go forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister of this Parliament. Now I request our Deputy Leader of the Opposition side, Professor Donald.
You're muted.
There we go. Well, I think Marshall made one of the points that I'm going to make is the question in front of us is, can technology solve all human problems? And people have been talking about moonshots and energy and global warming, CO2 waste, various kinds of things. And so if we ask the question, can technology solve some of people's problems? The answer is, yeah, sure, we do it all the time. But the question of can we solve all human problems is a completely different one. Any of you just think for a second about having a meeting with some people, even your friends, trying to decide where you're going to go out to dinner. All it takes is one person to have a different view, and it can paralyze the entire meeting. One person. And there's over 7 billion people in the world, and all of these people with their own opinions and their own views of what's going to be best for them, for themselves, and their futures. There was I think Ben Bernanke was one of the heads of the Federal Reserve, and he gave a speech which I thought was great. He said, well, physics is simple. He says molecules do the same thing all the time, but human beings they'll change what they want from one day to the next, from 1 hour to the next. So the question and where there are real problems, we can make enough food in the world, but it's a political problem about getting the food to people. People say, well, we want to keep ours. Look at the vaccinations. All the developing world is getting vaccinated, but we're not able to share our vaccines with the other. It's a political problem. There's many people in the United States who feel that it's unreasonable for them to pay taxes to help other countries. But yet, the only way that we're going to be able to have a stable world is if we all start working together to be able to help each other. We could have solutions to global warming problems, but if they're not implemented by everybody, they're not going to do what we need them to do. So in a sense, there's material technology and then there's social technology. So we talk about the idea of psychology. Psychology is incredibly complicated and far beyond what we are able to quantify. But when you get into sociology, the next level above psychology, you start running in, it becomes infinitely more complex because you're looking at basically it's exponentially more complicated. And the exponent is 7.5 billion people. And so you can just think about it. No one needs to really make an argument. No one needs to come up with statistics. No one needs to come up with examples of how much how this technology or that technology is solving problems. Just look in yourself, in your own life, and ask yourself, what technology is going to make my life better? You can learn the greatest technology. You can get your PhD in physics and another one in computer science and put them together and get the most fabulous job and be working on the most fabulous technology. But that still isn't going to change your relationship with your wife and your parents and your friends. Those are the kinds of things that are really important. If you look at people, ask them what's important to people. It's their families and their friends. And what technology can we develop, or have we even begun to develop, to be able to start making that better in people's lives? Or is it even a technological problem? I looked at Wittgenstein said at the end of Tractus, he said, if every problem, we feel that if every single scientific problem has been solved, we still won't have touched the problems of life. And I think that's the key to why technology can't solve all of our problems, because our problems aren't about anything that technology has anything to do with.
Thank you, Professor Donald. Now I request for a speech from the government side, Member of the Parliament, Mr. Adam. Thank you, Professor Talib, for joining today's session.
Thank you, Sharif. Well, as is said quite often, including by my esteemed colleagues here, it's almost a rule, really, that technology isn't inherently bad, nor is it inherently good. It just is. It's who wields it, how it's wielded. An easy example is a knife. A knife can help cut crops and help hunting animals for food, or it can be used to murder a fellow human. As I am sure we are aware, ethics and morality are arguably very grey, more often than black and white. We could say that hunting an animal is bad or evil, whether it's necessity or not, excuse me. And with the example of murdering someone, if that person was an unrepentant killer of people, vulnerable people, many people, that his or her demise was a good thing and an exception to the rule of do no harm, do not kill, so on. But again, that doesn't mean the tools used are bad or good. It's who is holding the handle of the knife, who and how. Like with fire, that can be used to commit arson or to prevent food poisoning by being used to cook food. Again, fire is not good or bad, it just is. The fire, the knife, the machine, the technology are all blameless. The wielder, the pilot, the controller, the operator is to blame. Although saying that, admittedly, technology could be used to persuade or influence people to act against their interests, like mind control and brainwashing technology, but we could address that problem with the same argument I just presented. Somebody still has to operate that kind of technology in order for it to be used that way. But anyway, furthermore, if we blame technology, if we place all or even the majority of blame onto the technology rather than the operator, then people in positions of power and influence will lobby for the suppression of such technology. Will try and rally many ordinary people to support the suppression of such technology, which they do not realize at first will be against their interests until it's too late. So using examples of fire and knives again, if a politician dictated the outlawing of fire, then obviously cases of arson and setting people on fire and self-immolation and the production of flamethrowers, mostly bad things, would be banned, and the prevention of suffering at the receiving end of such things is undoubtedly a good and positive result, but by the same token, more people would be dying from food poisoning, freezing to death, or falling down holes and cliff faces because it's too dark. So both of these results would happen in tandem, a bit like antibiotics. Not only does it help with illness, but you feel ill and wiped out as a result of such treatment because it's a dramatic and undiscriminating scorched earth approach that destroys the good as well as the bad. Again, banning knives outright with discernment, just banning them everywhere would be disastrous, and a similar dichotomous argument could be presented using attack and defense, which I think is very useful, especially when talking about things like knives. If we banned all knives, sure, offences and crimes involving perpetrators stabbing victims would be diminished, which is undoubtedly a good thing. Or maybe knives was not such a good example because not many people nowadays defend themselves with knives anymore than their swords. But let me change that and replace it with martial arts. If all martial arts at all skill levels everywhere were banned outright, then we would be disabling people from being able to defend themselves as well as disabling attackers, like declawing a cat. So then the definition of technology starts to get a little fuzzy, like Donald mentioned. Some thinkers might question the definition of technology. Can something like a martial art be classed as a technology? So the solution to these problems is societal, really. I think we need to educate people rather than take away the potential that technology has to solve all of our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I request Professor David Smith. You can take lead for third speakers for your side. So all of your debate durations will be 7 minutes for a speech, 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you all the speakers today in our parliament as we look at this. You know, we have active questions from our constituents as we've looked at this. You know, ones like, in a developing nation, when the power's not here, what good does technology do us? You know, legitimate questions and ways to begin to put places in it. You have them going, you know, how does it affect society and the environment? Well, technology affects them both in very good ways and very bad ways, and ways to look at that. We have talks about Industry 5.0, and as you look at 5.0 with its definition, you know, it's a stage of development and manufacturing where machines become smart enough to perform complex actions all by themselves, and without the collaboration of humans. And, you know, as we look at that, it has many different effects. COVID-19 pandemic has really upended part of the narrative around technology. You know, however, in spite of all the hype, the digital technology could not prevent nor control the spread of the coronavirus. You know, instead, we saw that sound policy intervention, access to humans, devoted professionals, and common sense are really what has flattened the curves. And that the technology that really helped us on this was not the fancy contracting tracing app, but really it was a very simple face mask that worked to get it. And as I look at some of the other types of approaches we have here, what we see is that even though the majority leader and his party has done a lot to advance technology and understand the nuances of technology. There's places where it can't solve problems. For example, we've put policy in place, we've put technology in place, but one of the problems it's not been able to solve is that of robocalls. I mean, every day I get calls from wanting to extend my car warranty and all these other things that, in spite of all our technology, we cannot really prevent the robocalls from impacting us. And we begin to see the other elements too. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take a minute, step back, and look at the places where we've had others help us in that, and when windows into the end of the world, human beings become addicted to technology. In the Matrix, there's a picture of people who are plugged into virtual reality games so much they lose touch with other human beings. In Steven Spielberg's AI, artificial intelligence, the woman struggles for her feelings, a robot child who's been programmed to love her. She loves her robot more than the other humans around her. And you see the elements like that. You see people at MIT, Caltech, and others who are coming back and questioning the role of technology and how it has impacted our lives. There's some very great things that there's another great publication with a working title called The Enigma Machines. And it's about how computers and the human spirit and life are diverging because of the advances in technology. And I can go on and on citing people who are pushing this. Again, what the opposition prior is not saying is that technology is bad. But the question before this body, can technology solve all the problems? And the answer is totally no. You cannot do that. It cannot. Is it a tool to use? 100% yes, but it's a tool and it needs to be worked as a tool. And you begin to see it. There's many, many different ways to do it. But, what I think might be one of the best approaches is begin to understand that technology doesn't create a stable society with rules, norms, and values. Society is a product of social contracts built between the different pillars of society, such as the government, the private sector, the academia, and the ordinary citizens. And there is an acute understanding of how to use the different elements to advance our society, to use the tools where they're appropriate, but let our collective intelligence be the ones to make this decision. It cannot solve all the problems. It cannot put the elements in place. There's been some written lately about the role of robots in society and how robots will destroy marriage, because if I can take a robot and program it with my characteristics I want, why get married? Technology is good, but can it begin to do things like that? There's just so many different places. Again, the premise on the table is, can technology solve all of our problems? And I think the answer is no. But let me just conclude with one quote that I think really fits here. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest thinkers of our lifetimes, really is quoted as saying, technology progress is like an axe in the hand of a pathological criminal. And the view is, it can be. Technology is good, but can it solve all of our problems? I think the answer is no, it cannot. And we just need to work as a collective to use technology where it's appropriate, but understand that the human mind, the human spirit, but even more importantly, the collaborative group intelligence of all of our institutions and citizens is what drives us forward in this time. So thank you so very much for being part of this debate.
Thank you, Professor David Smith. Now I request Professor Rob as a Prime Minister for the concluding sessions for today. Beside that, there are many audience, they have point of informations. So if our Honorable Prime Minister also responds few of the point of information from our audience, it will be helpful for our audience.
Sure. Well, let's begin with the counter argument, and then I'll conclude. Then in the middle, I'll address some of the underlying questions. So first, the question on the floor is, this House believes that technology can fix all human problems. I was actually expecting from the opposition one example of a problem that it couldn't fix, and the opposition failed to provide a single example of what the problem, what technology couldn't fix. They focused on ideas like people won't do it or shouldn't do it, or the collateral damage that has occurred in the past from the misuse of technology. And as Adam pointed out, technology is neither good nor bad. We're not arguing that technology can only be used for good. We're not arguing that there isn't often collateral damage for the misuse of technology. Our argument is that technology can, and the word is can, fix all human problems. We can look at historical past and look at past administrations in other countries. The United States, for instance, under President Jimmy Carter, had a chance to revolutionize a sustainable power, and he aggressively put up solar panels. Many people in the nation invested in that technology, but he was replaced by Ronald Reagan, who was largely supported by the petrochemical industry, and those solar panels came down on the people that invested in them went out of business. And the end result is China now is the leader in solar panel production. The United States is not. Didn't stop the technology. It wasn't the technology's fault that it didn't advance. Solar remains one of the most sustainable energy sources on the planet. It was the case of an industry that would be financially impacted adversely, getting in the way of advancement and furthering or forwarding a different administration that could operate underneath their economic guidelines as opposed to sustainable energies guidelines. And that points to my earlier and opening remarks, is to make technology have a positive impact. You need every element. You need the focus. You need the will to complete the project. You need adequate talent. You need to be able to fund it, and you need the time to complete the effort. And finally, you need to get rid of entities like, either mitigate entities like the petrochemical companies, or eliminate them. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not convinced the elimination path is practical, but providing financial incentives to help the industry pivot at least would appear to be more effective. Now, we have heard a lot of stories from science fiction books as counterpoints. And don't get me wrong, science fiction writers are often used to identify collateral damage, to identify paths that folks haven't thought of. The concept is called science fiction prototyping, where you use science fiction concepts to prototype a future world and anticipate some of the problems and eliminate them. And I'm certainly not suggesting we don't do that. Because David Smith is absolutely correct. Often technologies are used in a way that is adverse. Nuclear power wasn't first created to provide energy. It was first used in a wartime situation, and certainly has since been identified as one of the existential risks to the human race. On the other hand, nuclear energy is also one of the cleanest sources of power, and currently we're moving towards a fusion source for power, which is even cleaner and less likely to be turned into a weapon. Again, it looks like the greatest advancements are occurring in China, because the U.S. lacked either the will or the money or the time to do the same thing in their country. That's not a problem. That's not the fault of technology. That's just the fault of the United States being unwilling, and the ability of China to be willing to create a better clean energy source. Some of the questions that came up, Industry 5.0 waste prevention principles. Technology has created a lot of waste. Plastics in particular are a huge problem. And once again, plastics came out of the petrochemical industry as a byproduct to gasoline processing. Plastics have turned out to be a serious problem long term with regard to the environment. And while technology created the problem, technology is actually working to mitigate it. Bio-capability is being developed in terms of enzymes that can break down the plastics. And on the front end of the problem, technology currently exists to create plastics that biodegrade. Some of the results have been less than satisfying in my reading, but at least it showcases that technology can be applied to correct problems that technology has created. The opposition raised issues with regard to human problems. Donald pointed out a lot of the human problems associated with just being a human, the behavioral problems and the rest. Mentioned that in Zoom meetings, often you get people that disagree and you can't make progress. However, technology is being applied to create that problem as well. The great collaboration platforms, so WebEx, Zoom, Microsoft Teams are gradually coming around to the idea of being able to better document the arguments and will in the future be able to create counter arguments that are based on fact. Many of the opposition pointed out problems like fake news as a serious issue. Real-time fact checking, which is a technology solution, has been able to mitigate fake news. And so you could call fake news a technology problem and real-time fact checking a technology solution to that underlying problem. So technology again can fix the problems that the opposition has put forward, but they are correct. If technology is not used properly, then it can often create more problems than it solves. But the proposition in front of us is whether technology can fix all human problems, and the only opposition to that is technology can't. And the opposition has failed to point out one instance where technology hasn't eventually been able to overcome a problem or theoretically can't overcome a problem. They've simply focused on things that technology has done badly or people that have implemented that technology badly, and that is not the point. And so I conclude by saying that technology can fix all human problems, but with the caveat that it requires focus, it requires will, it requires talent, it requires money, it requires time, and you do have to consider the headwinds and remove the headwinds so you can accomplish the project. Whether it's solving global warming, addressing the issues with the massive problem we have with waste, or even mitigating the problems of misused technology. Take, for instance, one of the big concerns we have right now is the use of artificial intelligence in weapon systems. That's a very high concern because those weapon systems could do far more damage at a far higher rate than humans could mitigate. But what's the fix? Artificial intelligence powered defenses. It's the same thing with quantum technology. Quantum technology can break any encryption on the planet. What's the fix? Quantum technology. Quantum technology can create encryption that quantum technology can't break. So once again, technology can not only fix the problems, human problems, technology can be applied to fix the problems it creates. I will agree, however, with the opposition that perhaps as we develop technology, we should focus as much on mitigating any problems the technology creates and any collateral damage as we do on implementing the technology itself. That's where things like science fiction prototyping come in and the appropriate use of science fiction capability in terms of creating a positive path for our technology development. So we conclude by saying technology can fix all human problems if it's applied correctly, if we consider the collateral damage, and if we make sure that the outcome we want, the positive outcome, is the outcome that we get. The Prime Minister rests.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister,
Sharif,
for your.
I have to leave, so I just want to thank everyone on this panel. And the person you just brought up to the dais, Michael Rana, is I consider a good friend and a good proponent of addressing climate crisis and climate issues and dealing with waste. And I'm about to go off to a real meeting to actually deal with that very technology that we can apply. So I thank everybody, and I wish everybody well. And Honorable Opposition David and Donald, Thank you very much for your presentations, and we'll continue the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Thank you for joining today's sessions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Michael, because you are an excellent audience for today's debate. That's why I invite you, even in between debate, please join with us. So hopefully our debaters will get some analysis from you, and they will take it as a like comments from our audience. And most important thing, today we actually finishing 481 episode. We are working now. We are working with many university, corporations, and government body, and our major objective is talent economy. So, what is talent economy? Many people actually ask me questions. They have a lot of confusions. When actually human and technology they work together, we can figure out the best outcome. Let's say I'm in Malaysia, the other speaker from USA, from Europe. So when as a team we are utilizing internets and modern technologies, laptop, computers, mobiles. When the modern technology we are utilizing and we are arranging this kind of debate, it actually adding values for this society. That is our objective, World Talent Economy Forum. And already many, even today, one of the media, largest media from South Asia, they are also supporting our initiative. So we want to welcome everyone. We want to welcome all of the corporation, startup, small medium enterprise, government agencies, academia to join in our initiative, because there are a lot of problems. Actually, our debaters say we have right now. We have our climate change problem, global warming problem. We have our healthcare related problem. COVID is a big challenges for us. Economy is a major challenges for us. We have to work as a team. We have to help each other, and we have to develop a sustainable community. That is our objective. So today's debate actually very helpful for our youth communities. They can understand that how we should analyze the specific topics. You can see that our debaters they actually analyze many points in a short period of time. So this is one of the art. This is called case study development, strategy development. Even when our youth communities go to the corporate level, there are many successful corporate person like Professor Rob, Professor David Smith, Mr. Donald. They are successful corporate person. They do attend in the debate. So I believe even they can share their experience through this process. You can like this kind of debate also helpful for your corporate career. So next month we are actually inviting 3,200 students under School of Talent Economy from India. uh, Rotary Club from India, they are sponsoring the students. We will provide training, and from there we will arrange a competitions. Only 10 students they get chance to attend in this dialogue, and this dialogue become very popular in the developing worlds. Many academy and they are taking it as an example. Even in the future we want to invite more parliament member to attend in this debate. Now I request Mr. Michael for the concluding remarks, and especially I request him to give some analysis for today's debate.
Thank you very much. I am really happy that I found this because it was so different to all the greenwashing conferences which I have to attend. It was very interesting for me because you touched the role of human. And I'm the only one here in the board who does not have academic education. I started as a steel factory worker, but now I am leading 94 countries. And generally, there is one topic when I come back to what Rob Adler says with his last speech, one topic which generally even artificial intelligence and supercomputers cannot solve at the moment. And this is exactly the human creativity and the preventing the waste happen, because they are solving only something what they see and understand. But I started to do something which nobody recognized it even exists. So prevention, it's quite interesting topic. And I am really happy that you touched the human, because the human is the key. And this is why when I ask anybody, this is why I put all the questions there.
and the comments, because when I asked the people, I asked them really if they would like to live in a wasteless world. And I don't define your wasteless world image, but I know there is a clean air, clean water, and there are smiling faces of people around you which you love. And these three segments are in wasteless world. And this is why so many people, especially in India and in other destinations, join. So I am really happy to listen to this. It was very interesting for me. I think you touched the right topics. And if there will be a chance to join some of the next one, I would be really happy if there will be a time and I will not be in a factory or so to really join and share and to learn from you, because you have a view which is missing in me, because I do not have this education which you had, but this makes me different and I am happy to be different. So as all of you are, because this is the role model. I mentioned in one comment that the definition which David Smith used is generally not the right one. The European Commission took my work and misleading. They say that Industry 5.0 is a new robot and no, it's not. It is truly the first industrial evolution, because I realized that revolution will end as soon as you have more money than the opponent. You will pay the soldiers and they will be there for you. But evolution, once started, and we are part of the evolution, cannot be ended. And the only difference of this one is that it's led by man. I started as a Blue Ocean project. And it's so powerful that everybody is just right now talking about it, including United Nations and so on. Part of it is misleading, but as long as I will be living here, I am the founder. I have the intellectual property on this. I cannot patent it because it's too general, but it is here, it is existing, and it's changed completely the view on many things, including education, industries, and many. So thanks a lot. I do not want to take more of your time. It was really excellent for me, and I would like to connect with every single of you on LinkedIn. I will try to send you the invite because it can be very interesting discussion in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Especially I want to give thanks because in a short period of time, when you give the feedback and comments, I invite you in the LinkedIn and you join. Thank you. In the short period of time you join. It's very important for us because audience is important. When audience come and give feedbacks on debate and everything, it's become more important. And thank you everyone. Especially I want to request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible with your government, corporations, and academy. And for this debate, actually, we are also publishing many scientific papers from our audience, those who want to work with us for publishing scientific papers. They can join in our team as an authors or co-authors. Yes, we already provide many scholarship from World Talent Economy Forum for publishing scientific journal, because debate is one important aspect, and side by side we want to publish more scientific journal on technologies. So thank you, honorable speakers for this parliament, Professor Rao, for your excellent contributions, Professor Donalds, Professor David Smith, Mr. Adam, and Mr. Michaels for joining today's session. Thank you, bye-bye, and take care.